What's going on, everybody? American Football Network here with another video today. And today we're bringing you our Miami Hurricanes preview prediction. But before we get started, make sure you guys like and subscribe. Help me hit that goal of 1,000 subscribers by the end of August. Make sure you guys check out our shop. Link can be found in the description. There'll be some pinned products here. You can also find it on our channel page. Check all that stuff out. Get you some nice merchandise. But let's go ahead and get started with today's video. So Miami, last year, disappointing season for sure. Mario Cristobal's first season, as they went 5-7 overall, 3-5 in the ACC. They had some bad losses for sure, losing at home to Middle Tennessee State 45-31. They lost to Duke 45-21 at home. They barely beat Virginia on the road 14-12. They got beat 45-3 by Florida State. They lost at Clemson 40-10. Let's see. Pitt beat them 42-6. They lost earlier in the season in week 3 on the road to Texas A&M 17-9. So, they definitely didn't have a great season last year. Mario Cristobal and the Miami Hurricanes looking to bounce back a little bit as they go into year 2 under him. Tyler Van Dyke returns. He's going to have to be better if this team expects to be any better. They only returned 5 starters on the offense. They got 2 on the offensive line, Van Dyke at quarterback, Henry Parrish Jr. at running back, and Frank Latson at wide receiver. So, they don't bring back necessarily a whole lot. Latson has a hard time staying healthy. Saw the same thing out of him at Clemson with that. So, it's going to be tough for Miami this season, especially when you look at that schedule. They got a few tough games on there for sure. A few interesting games as well. They got a game at Temple. What are they doing going on the road to Temple? Let's see. They got another one. They go to Clemson again this season. They go on the road to NC State. That'll be an interesting one. On the road to Boston College to end the season. That'll be a little bit of an interesting one. But let's go ahead and jump into our schedule predictions part for Miami. So they started off playing Miami. That would be Miami, Ohio, of course. And I think this game is a win for the Hurricanes. I think they will prove that they are the real Miami. I don't think there's much discussion needed with this one. I don't think Miami, Ohio really has the talent to compete with Miami University from Florida. That is a little confusing. But, we saw it last year. Middle Tennessee State shouldn't have the talent to compete. They really don't, but they did. We see it, Virginia last year, they didn't have the talent to compete with Miami, but they did and only lost by 2 at home. So, there were some teams that pushed Miami last year that shouldn't have. Can Miami, Ohio do that? I doubt it. I see them kind of similar to the Southern Miss team that Miami beat last year, 30-7. I kind of see this game finishing similar like that. I don't think this will be a big deal for Miami at all. Then week 2, they get Texas A&M. This will be one of the bigger games of week 2. Obviously, it'll be overshadowed as well every other game that week by Texas, Alabama. But still a pretty big game nonetheless. And honestly, a big game for Cristobal, in my opinion. You can't lose the home and home series. You can't lose both games in the home and home against Texas A&M. In my opinion, I think that he needs to win this one at home. They lost 17-9 last year. I think he needs a win against Jimbo, and I think he'll get it. And I think Miami will win that game. I just think early in the season, Texas A&M, they already have so much stuff they got to work out. I don't think they're going to have it all worked out, especially not week 2. I think Miami's in a little bit of a better spot. I do think Cristobal is a little bit of a better head coach than Jimbo as of right now. Not a whole lot. I think Mario Cristobal is one of the more overrated head coaches in college football. But I do think he's a little bit better than Jimbo, who I think may be the most overrated head coach in football. But, I think Miami's just the better team in this game. It's a home game, although home field advantage for Miami doesn't really mean a whole lot. But it is a home game nonetheless. Texas A&M is having to travel and won't have the crowd advantage. So I have the Hurricanes with a win. Then they get Bethune-Cookman at home. I have this game as a win. They beat them 70-13 last year to open the season. Don't think there will be much of a problem there. Then they have that kind of weirder one where they go on the road to Temple, but I have that game as a win. I don't think they have the level of talent or the coaching to compete with Miami. I think Miami is clearly a better football team than Temple is. I don't really think it's even all that close. So, another win for the Hurricanes. They move to 4-0 and make it 5-0 when they get Georgia Tech at home. This game is a win, although this is one I could see Georgia Tech winning for sure. To me, this game is like 60-40 in favor of Miami. I like what Brent Key is doing at Georgia Tech. I think he's building something pretty good down there. I think that he's a guy that can motivate them, and they have Haynes King at quarterback. If he can play, similar to what he was expected to be out of high school, it is going to be a very good. He will be the best quarterback Georgia Tech has had in a while. Obviously, Jeff Sims was the most talented they've had in a while, but injuries and then just terrible development kind of killed his career with Georgia Tech. And so I think that Georgia Tech is a team that can compete with Miami in this game, although I do think Miami is the better team going into the season, and I have them winning the game. Then Miami goes on the road to North Carolina, a team that beat them only by 3 last year, 27-24. I think the margin of victory for North Carolina this year is even more. I have this game as a loss for Miami. I just don't think they're going to be able to stop North Carolina's offense. And as bad as North Carolina's defense is, I think that they're going to be able to get some stops on Miami. I think Miami's going to be very inconsistent this year, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And, I do think they'll be improved from last year, but I still think they're going to be inconsistent on offense. And, I think North Carolina, even if it's just a shootout, I think North Carolina obviously is going to win. I don't think Miami has the firepower offensively to hang with them. Then they get Clemson on the road. No, excuse me. Then they get Clemson at home. They get Clemson at home. Sorry, I was reading that backwards. They get Clemson at home in Miami, and I have this game as a loss. They have two very tough games back-to-back on the road at North Carolina and then Clemson at home. I think they lose both of them. I just think Clemson's a more talented team. I think just based on the fact that Dabo Swinney is more of a much more proven head coach than Mario Cristobal is, I think gives Clemson the win because I think Clemson is the better football team and definitely the more talented team going into the season. But they both have similar question marks. Now, to the extent of each other, that is not comparable. I think Miami's clearly in a worse spot than Clemson is. Miami went 5-7 last year, and Clemson went like 10-3. So, it's something that is gonna it's something that is going to be to watch for both of these teams. And what's going to happen at the quarterback position. Klubnik coming in to his second season, his first one as the main guy throughout the entire offseason with Garrett Riley, the new offensive coordinator. And then you look at Miami. Well, Van Dyke was great with Manny Diaz in his freshman year. And then you look at last year under Cristobal, and he was just awful. So what's he going to look like? So I think that there's both got some question marks at the quarterback position, although I do think despite that, Clemson is clearly the better football team, and I think they will easily get the win in this game. I think it'll be a lot like it was last year when Clemson beat them 40-10. And then they have a bye week. Then they get Virginia at home. I have this game as a win. I think that Virginia is probably the worst team in the ACC. I think Miami will beat them, and I think they'll beat them a little more soundly than they did last year, only winning by 2 in overtime. Then they go on the road to NC State. I have this game as a loss. I think NC State is a solid team. They're, under Dave Doran, they've been really good. The program's in a good direction. I think it's just a safer pick to go with NC State, and I think NC State is the better football team. I do think Brennan Armstrong will be back to what he was 2 years ago when he threw for almost 5,000 yards. Now, I'm not saying he's going to throw for that much, but he's going to play similar to that level that he was on back then. And I think NC State will be a pretty good football team this season, and I think that they will get the win over the Hurricanes of Miami. Then they go on the road to Florida State. I have this game as a loss. Florida State beat them by 6 touchdowns last year, 45-3. Florida State is a top 10 team, maybe even top 4. Miami cannot compete with that kind of talent yet. They just don't have their own talent of that level in yet. And so I think Florida State rolls against the Hurricanes. Then they get Louisville at home. I have this game as a win, although this is one that I could definitely see going Louisville's way. It's kind of hard to know what Jack Plummer and Jeff Brom are going to do at Louisville. Kind of hard to see what direction they're going to be headed in, how they're going to play and perform and stuff. And so I'm giving Miami the win. I think they're just a little bit of a better football team. It's a home game for them, and I think that they will get the win over the Louisville Cardinals. Then they go. Boston College is one of the 3 or 4 worst teams. They're down there with Georgia Tech and Virginia Tech and Virginia. And I think Miami is inconsistent as they were and as bad as I think they'll be and as bad as they were last year. They're still better than this Boston College team, who I think goes like 3-9, 4-8, something like that. I think Jeff Hafley's probably gone after the season. I just think Miami's clearly a much better team than they are. I think that they can win that game, and so I don't think that they will really have any trouble with it. But that wraps up Miami's schedule. I have them going 8-4 overall, 4-4 in the ACC. So not a bad season there for the Hurricanes. I like what they're I like where they're headed. If this is the season they have instead of a 5-7 season, Cristobal definitely needs to make a bowl game for sure, or he could be in a little bit of trouble. I think it's going to be a solid season for Miami this year. I think Miami fans can be excited about that, but we'll see. But thank you guys for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Comment your thoughts and opinions down below, and I hope to see you guys next time.